I have a question about corrections. They came to you and asked for an extra $81 million.
Right.
I know they have a new facility opening in 2015,
Right.
but it was very opposite of what health came to you and said $40 million less. How do you gauge priorities when people are talking about funding prisons?
Yeah, it's obviously, that we have, that's the multiple priorities that are being focused on us. I think with prisons, we do have a new prison being opened up. We have to, we're forced by federal law and by our own desire to provide beds. We can do one of the things, we can keep sending them back to the local governments and letting them and paying them to do it, or we can build our own facilities. One of the things we haven't been honest about is we've been using one-time funding to fund some of those costs to local jails, acting like it would go away, but it really obviously I think is a real cost to us. So we'll have to take that into account. Obviously the pressure from health is more, we had all these one-time programs that were federally funded that are ending, and I think that's what we're seeing there.
Well, my question really is about the priorities. Is it,
yeah.
It's tough to say 80 extra million for prisons when you're looking at 40 million less for health.
And so I don't know that we can do that with an overall budget that that we're probably going to have to, like I said, we've got 300 million total new dollar and 500 million claiming that. So that'll be that's why we're going through this process, is to help us filter out that, and then ultimately we'll have to make some hard decisions.
Hey, Governor, one more kind of another question about correction. I mean, how likely is it that you do like the close a prison, lay off 300 people, and shift it?
Again,
and look at Lucas.
Yeah, sorry.
Is that you over there? No, you can look at me. Okay.
All right, good. Well, I don't. I mean, right now, closing a prison would be a very drastic decision. For one thing, we're just getting ready to open a new prison. Now, that was set in motion, I guess, 4 years ago. So the thought that we would actually close a prison is pretty hard to justify. But again, if we made a 5% cut, that's what we would have to do. Dr. Dreisner showed here's the $5 million in cuts that would happen if we made a 5% cut in his non-federal money. I'm hoping we don't have to do either one of those, but again, both of them have done their homework to show here's what will be. All that's dependent upon what's revenue look like for the rest of the year, and then once we're finished all these departments, we're going to have a huge list of requests and priorities, and then we'll start that winnowing out process.
What about the high turnover rate and the correction system? This is for years has been an issue, and could this bring up the salary classification study?
I think if you look in state government period, we have turnover issues in a lot of places. Like I said, we have it at corrections, we have it with engineers at TDOT. I can go on and on. I think that's our job, is to identify where turnover is costing us more money than it's saving because of salaries. And TDOT we'll get to later. I don't mean to distract us, but we've lost a lot of folks who have then gone to work for private engineering firms that we now have consulting contracts with that cost us more money. So we have a lot of things to. That's why getting salary right is so important, because we don't want to train people for other agencies, and I think we're doing that.
Yesterday, the Occupy Nashville folks went and they were protesting in front of the Corrections Corporation of America, right, which we obviously, as a state, work with. What do you think about their arguments that they're working off the benefits of a system where if we're sending more people to prisons, that they get to benefit off that? I mean.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that CCA is making the decision to send more people to prisons, and I mean, our numbers show, as came up in corrections, that they cost the state less to house a prisoner with CCA than it does with ourselves or with our private contractors. So, in my mind, it's one of the ways. Obviously, it's a small piece, but it's one of the ways the state's addressing our need to house inmates, and it's doing it at lower cost to citizens. I would think most people would think that's a good thing.
Governor, I thought they said that you had the state average, which included those with
right.
maximum security,
right,
hospitals and everything else. So it's really not apples and apples.
Well, it's not apples and apples, but I think if you did take that and make it as close as you could, I still think that the private providers are averaging less than what it's costing us ourselves.
Do you think?
We can ask them to break that out and measure.
Hey, is that what CCA is claiming still, or?
I assume that's the basis of their business. I haven't asked them that, but I think if you ask Commissioner Schofield, I think he would say that's what our numbers have proved out. But again, that's not our total solution. I mean, the vast majority of our inmates we're housing ourselves.
Guys, we have time for maybe one more.
Anybody else? Or not.
Governor, also with CCA, it's been suggested that, as a lobbying, that they've lobbied for, harsher penalties, which would obviously feed into the correction system. What do you think about that?
Well, I've actually, I can't, I've never seen CCA. The people I see lobbying for harsher penalties are our DAs. There's obviously a fiscal issue attached to that with the state, which is one of the reasons we haven't strengthened sentencing, which a lot of people think would address a crime. If you look at what the issues we struggle with in Tennessee, we've talked about one of them today with health, education's the other, and in crime rates, we're still very near the bottom or top, depending on whichever the worst end is. And sentencing guidelines, I think, are a piece of that, have been shown to be a piece of that. So, I'm not sure that's a CCA-driven argument. I think that's a statistics-driven argument.